Hey everyone, I'm going to walk you through the process to make our Romero Britto 3D letter that looks like this. So the back is not painted, the front is decorated, the sides are painted black on this example, and then it's nice and solid. It's got a structure that is not going to collapse, so it's nice and sturdy and we can hang it on the wall. So to get started, the first thing you need is some sort of measuring device, and I like using these long yardsticks because this yardstick is exactly 2 inches wide, and it just makes our job of cutting our strips of railroad board a lot easier. And then you'll start with your big sheet of railroad board, and this is going to be the material we are using to make pretty much our entire letter, except for how we decorate the top of it. So I'll show you how we cut this apart and measure it out. All right, so the next things you need, like I said, are your railroad board. We've got our long yardstick. You need scissors and something to draw or write with. And so what we're going to do, I like to flip my railroad board so it's curving down. And I am going to line up my yardstick with the edge of the paper. And I'm going to make sure it is exact, because these strips that you make right now are vital to the success of your letter in terms of making sure that they are exactly the same. You have to take care and make sure each and every single one of these is precise. Now the width of my yardstick is 2 inches. So if you don't have a yardstick, you can just use a ruler and some sort of straight edge that will give you consistent lines all the way across your board. I like to do this part standing up because I just think it's easier. All right. You will end up with 10 strips, exactly the same size, and probably one that is a little bit smaller. That smaller one we are going to throw away because it is not usable for purposes of our project. So our next step then is to take scissors, and I like to tell my students to cut, you want to cut so precisely along each one of those lines that you are splitting that line in half. And so you'll cut these all apart, slow and steady, no jagged edges. You do not want jagged edges. This is not kindergarten cutting. It's nice and neat, slow and steady, good craftsmanship, taking care to make sure every single cut is right down the center of that line. Okay, so you'll cut 10 of these. So you'll cut all 10 of these, and then we'll move on. All right, once you have all 10 of your strips cut out, they should all be exactly the same width. So as I hold them together, they should all match exactly the same width, okay? And so I'm going to take these now, and I'm going to begin to cut them into smaller pieces because we need to build the supports for our structure, for our letter. And so I don't need you to measure them exactly, except that we kind of estimate. So I like to put my hand kind of on there, and I think, all right, well, right here's a good spot to cut. So we want this to be just a little bit wider than our hand, okay? And you need to cut 25 of those. And again, they don't have to be precise, okay? But we should be able to get about 6 of them out of each of our strips of paper, okay? So go ahead and cut all 25 of those, all right? And then the next thing you're going to do once you have those is you're going to begin to fold them and turn these into triangles. And I like to use a metal ruler, or you can use the edge of your table if you want. You can bend it over the side of your table. But for purposes of our video right here, it's just easier for me to use a metal ruler. And all it's doing is this ruler's giving me a straight edge to bend on. So I'm going to put this ruler right here, and I'm going to bend up. I'm going to turn this around, put my ruler here again, hold it nice and still, and bend up. And like I said, that's just giving me straight lines to bend on. Okay, so I have a nice, perfect triangle. Then you're going to use your masking tape. I take one piece, it's about as wide as my hand, and then I tear it in half. I have two pieces. Then I'm going to take them and put one here and one here. And then I'm going to close up my triangle. And I want to make sure this edge of my triangle is exactly matched up with this edge. And this edge is exactly matched up with this edge. Okay, so we're going to take care to bend that over. Okay, and there's my triangle. It should sit perfectly still and not wobble. Let's do another one. So I've got my railroad board. Put my ruler on it. It really doesn't matter where. Put it on again. Bend. So I have two nice bends. Okay. Take my piece of tape. Tear it in half. Take one. Take the other. Fold this. Bend. Okay. There's the other. So you'll do 25 of these. 25 is what you need. Once you have 25 of these, you'll put them aside because then you need to plan out your letter. And so for this step, you may want to use your sketchbook and find a blank page. And what you're going to do is begin to sketch out, you're going to test some examples of letters that you may want to use. Now, you want to have a nice big block letter to give you lots of space to work with when you're decorating. But if you want something more with a flourish or curves, that's fine. You just have to work out exactly what it is you want. And if that means for some of you that you resort to opening up a Google Doc or something like that and testing out a couple different fonts before you commit to whatever you're going to do for your project, that's fine. Test it out in a Google Doc first and figure out exactly what type of letter you're going to work with. But I'm going to stick with something simple because I think that is easy to work with and doesn't present too many challenges when I have to build the walls. Every additional detail you put on your letter is an additional part that you have to worry about forming and shaping the sidewalls of your letter. So I'm going to go with this. Once I have that, we're going to take this large sheet of manila paper, and I have cut your manila paper exactly the size that it needs to be. We're using this size because it's large enough to fit in our cubby. It's as large as it possibly can be so that your letter will still fit in your cubby. So your next step is to draw out your letter on this pattern paper. And again, this is just pattern paper, and so if you goof it up on here, just erase or draw over it. It doesn't have to be nice and neat. So we're going to keep drawing. And you want your letter to be nice and big. All right, so that's kind of what I want for there. Once I have that, I'm going to cut it out. So I'm going to use my scissors and cut it out. And here's a letter A that I've already got cut out. All right. So once I have cut this out, then I'm going to take 2 sheets of railroad board, and that same paper or the same board we used to cut our strips. Remember these strips we made? Now we need another one, but it needs to be really big. So it is so big that I have actually folded it in half. Okay, so this is as big as I need for my letter, but you need 2 layers. Okay, 2 layers. And I'm paper clipping my letter together. Okay. And then if you need to, and I always suggest to students to do this, and actually I'm going to switch over to, I think this is better. I put some little pieces of tape, see the little tape right there? If you need to tape it down, that's fine.
Excuse me, can somebody please unlock room 217? Please unlock room 217.
So we're going to tape, 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 and then you're going to trace this using a marker, pencil, whatever you have. And while it's taped, you'll, like I said, you'll trace, then take this off, and then you're going to use your scissors and cut out the letter. Okay, so you should end up with 2 letters that are exactly cut out the same. So you have 2 copies of these, okay? And they have to be exactly the same, which is why we use these paper clips to hold these boards together as you're cutting. So they have to be the same size, all right? Once that is all cut out, like I said, you will have 2 copies of this. So you'll have your 2 copies that are exactly the same. One becomes the front of our project and one becomes the back of our project. Okay? All right, so we're going to take the back of our project. And remember all of these pieces that we made, all these triangles? Now we're going to start building our letter. So we're going to take our tape, tear the tape, tear it in half again. You're going to find your triangles, and you want to find the side of the triangle that doesn't have a lot of tape on it. And you're going to take your pieces of tape and you're going to put them on the inside so that they're facing outwards. So they look like this. If I turn this over, this is the sticky part. This is the sticky part. So I've taped on the inside so that this is the sticky part. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up so it's facing out on my letter. It's sticking out that way. But I want to press it so that this edge matches up with this edge. So I press it into there, and then I'm going to press this tape down really well. Then I'm going to take another piece, tear it in half, fold this up. Now once I fold it up, it should exactly match with this edge. It has to be exactly on this edge. That's the whole point, because this becomes a gluing surface to put our walls on. So I'm going to fold this up, tape here, and tape here, so it's nice and stable. This is now the first part of the inside of our letter. Let's do another one. Okay, your piece of tape, tear it in half. Find your next support. Look for the side that doesn't have a lot of tape on it. Put a piece of tape here on the inside. Put a piece of tape here on the inside. Okay, so that this is the sticky part. We're going to take this face down. We're going to come down a little ways. Don't put it right next to it. That you don't need to do that. We're going to come down a few inches, match it up with the edge of the letter, and then tape this down. Press really well. Get 2 more pieces of tape again. Fold this up. Make sure that this is flush. Okay? It should not be hanging over at all. And go ahead and tape it down. Okay. Now you're going to keep going with all of your triangles, and you have to make sure that there is a triangle on each and every part where the outside of your letter is. Okay? Along that outside edge of your letter, you need to space these out, okay, so that they are all around it. Don't forget this part, okay? Everywhere you have made a cut mark on your letter, you need to have some of these taped. Eventually, you'll end up with something that looks like this, okay, where these are taped all along the outside edge. Okay, so that's what that will look like. Now this one I've actually started building the wall on it, and I'm going to show you that part next. So that has set overnight and glued up. But your next step is to get some glue. And if you have access to tacky glue, I really like tacky glue for this project, but if you don't have tacky glue, just regular white glue will work fine, and actually wood glue works fine as well. Okay, so next thing you're going to do is you're going to locate the outside part of this project. We're going to line up this part right here, and I'm going to take a pencil. Do you see where this edge matches up with this edge right here? So that's my starting point. Where my letter changes direction, so I have a straight edge here, and then here's an angle where it goes down. I'm going to take my pencil and put a little mark, pencil pen, it really doesn't matter. Put a mark on my strip because I have to make a fold right there. And so you remember our trick earlier with our ruler, and we used that ruler to bend our strip. We're going to use this ruler again, or the edge of a table, really doesn't matter, to get a nice straight edge. If you don't have a ruler, just bend it by hand. Now that piece is going to go right there, and it will fit perfect right there. So we're going to take our glue and get our glue started. We're going to put some glue here. Glue on all of these supports. Doesn't have to be a ton of glue. You'd be amazed what a few blobs of glue can do. I'm going to take my strip and carefully line up my strip. And use some paper clips and paper clip this on so I don't have to sit here and hold this all class period long. So I'm pressing my triangles down because the tops of my triangles should be exactly the same height as the strip I'm putting on the side. Press it down, paper clip so I don't have to hold it. Press it down, match it up, paper clip it so you don't have to hold it. Press it down, paper clip so you don't have to hold it. Okay, so then from the side it kind of looks like this. You'll have a tiny bit of a gap, But you want to check and make sure that that gap you can actually press together, because eventually we're going to glue it shut. Okay, so this is where we are right now. Now you can see I've got this part hanging over the edge. So I want to take my pencil and kind of mark that, make sure I check that spot. If you can get a ruler in there to bend it on, that's fine, but chances are when you get to an edge here, you're not going to be able to put a ruler in there to bend it, and you're just going to have to bend it by sight. So I flip it over, so I'm looking at the front. Actually, this is the back, and we're going to flip this and just bend it so that edge matches up perfectly. Then I want to go back on this side and make sure that fold is nice and neat. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of glue, put it on the support, and again, a paper clip, if I can get one. Okay, and then you'll keep doing that over the entire project, so eventually you'll have walls on everywhere. You have to make sure you do the inside, and even right in here has to be covered, okay? So that is the next step that you need to do.